It was 3:17 a.m. when she thought I was asleep. I lay there, motionless, my back to her, breathing slow and steady. I heard the door creak open, soft footsteps across the carpet, the telltale sound of her slipping her heels off like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. The scent of cheap cologne clung to her skin, one I didn't wear. She thought she was being careful, that the darkness would hide the guilt smeared across her body. But I wasn't asleep. I hadn't been for months. Every lie, every shift in her schedule, every sudden burst of late meetings, they had all added up. She climbed into bed, her weight settling beside mine, sighing as if the night had drained her. And that's when I knew for sure. No guilt. No shame. Just comfort, because she thought I didn't know. That I never would. But I knew. I had known for weeks. I had the receipts literally and figuratively. Credit card charges at places she swore she never went. A second phone she thought she hid well. Even the hotel reservation under an alias. One she had used when we were still dating. That's what gutted me most. The same little lies she used to impress me were now being used against me. So I decided to wait. Not to argue. Not to beg. Not to rage. I waited. Because sometimes, silence is more dangerous than fury. And tonight was the night she would learn that the man she thought was soft, blind, passive, had teeth. Earlier that day, while she was out on what she called a last-minute networking dinner, I prepared my surprise. I emptied our shared closet, all my clothes, my shoes, even the framed wedding photo she insisted on keeping at the center. Gone. My side of the bed. Stripped bare. Only hers remained. The dresser? Emptied. The safe? Cleared out. My name? Removed from the lease, the utilities, even our joint Netflix account. But the final blow? That was in the envelope on her pillow. The one she'd discover when she turned to kiss me goodnight. Inside, divorce papers. Signed. Dated. With a handwritten note in thick black ink. I hope he was worth it. I didn't yell. I didn't stay. I just left her in the life she created without me, cold, empty, and so very quiet. I watched from my car, parked down the block, as the light in our bedroom flicked on minutes later. The blinds weren't fully drawn, just like always, and I could see her silhouette pause by the bed. She leaned forward, probably reaching for her phone or the blanket. Then she froze. I imagined her fingers brushing the envelope. I could almost see the way her shoulders tensed, how her breath must have caught in her throat. Maybe for the first time in months, she realized the man she'd once vowed to love wasn't as oblivious as she believed. I didn't need to be there to witness her reaction. I'd already seen it in my head 100 times. I pictured her tearing open the envelope in panic, her eyes darting over the legal language that made our separation real. The note would be the final stab. No confrontation. No drama. Just the cold truth she'd been hiding from. She'd slipped into bed believing she still had control. That I was still under her spell. That my silence was weakness. But that silence was my preparation. Every lie she had spoken was now folded neatly inside those papers. Her world wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. She called me 30 times before sunrise. The messages were all the same. Panic, disbelief, and desperation wrapped in a voice that used to sound like home. I didn't answer. I wouldn't give her the comfort of knowing I still cared enough to argue. I was done pouring myself into someone who emptied me every night. Instead, I checked into a small guest house on the edge of town. Peaceful, distant, and quiet enough to breathe again. The owner handed me the keys with a warm smile and no questions. It was exactly what I needed. That first morning, waking up without the weight of betrayal pressing against my spine, I realized how much I had been holding in. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the sunrise as a free man. Free from gaslighting. Free from excuses. Free from waiting up and wondering who she really was. But freedom comes with grief. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking walking away is easy. I cried that night. I screamed into a pillow. I mourned not just her, but the version of me that had hoped, fought, and stayed far too long. But as I stood in that pain, I also stood in truth. And sometimes, that's the first step toward peace. 2 weeks passed without a word from me. Not a text, not a call, not even a whisper of acknowledgement. I knew she'd be unraveling. The woman who once had me wrapped around her fingers now had nothing to hold on to. Friends we shared began reaching out, unsure of what had happened. I told them only this. Ask her. And they did. She must have cracked, because word spread fast. Not about her betrayal, no. She would never admit to that. But about how I just left and how cold I'd become. As if she expected me to stay and let her lie to my face night after night, to keep crawling back into the same bed that smelled like someone else. The hardest part wasn't the leaving. It was realizing how easy it was for her to spin the story. But I let her. I didn't need to convince anyone anymore. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. It just waits to be seen. One morning, I opened the door to my cabin, and there she was. No makeup. Hair tied back. Eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. She looked at me like a stranger might look at someone they used to know in a dream. Unsure, aching, desperate for familiarity. Please, she whispered. Can we just talk? I stepped aside, not out of kindness but closure. She walked in slowly, her eyes scanning the bare wooden walls like they were foreign territory. We sat across from each other, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the fear behind her confidence. She tried to explain how it wasn't supposed to happen, how she thought she was missing something in herself, how the other man made her feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. Then, when her voice trembled with guilt and she looked at me with tear-filled eyes, I finally answered with the same 7 words I had rehearsed every night since she betrayed me. You lost me the moment you lied. Silence fell between us. Heavy, suffocating, final. She reached out instinctively, like she had every right to fix this. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I let her hand hover in the air unanswered, just like the promises she once made. And then I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Goodbye, I said. She didn't fight. She just stood, stunned, and walked out into the cold morning light, realizing for the first time what it meant to truly be alone.